All right, welcome in, folks, to another edition of College Hockey Southwest Weekly Long Distance Devils. My apologies, first of all, for last week. I lost my voice, folks. I had nothing, not even a breath of air out of my voice for a couple of days. Lost everything in Vegas, and not everything. I lost my voice in Vegas.
Well, because the others did.
I didn't have anything to lose up there, so other than my voice. So anyway, that's why we had a long distance Devils feature last week, and I know my man Paul Hornstein was chomping at the bit to get on here and tell you all about what he saw last weekend. But Paul, first of all, welcome in, and hope things are well out in New York City.
It's cold, but I guess it's cold there apparently too.
Yeah, we're dealing with just brutal. I mean, it's like it's going to be in the 50s.
That's what it's like here. It's not supposed to be that there.
Yeah, it's brutal. Okay, let's get off the weather and let's talk about another Sun Devil sweep, another couple of games knocked off the magic number, which we now both agree on. The magic number is
boring. It's boring. We agree. It's one. It's boring.
So what were your thoughts on senior weekend at Oceanside Ice Arena?
My thoughts about senior weekend is, one, you definitely could sense the emotion and the intensity surrounding the rink. You felt it all weekend. Most of the time, or a good chunk of the time, it manifested itself positively. Other times, it did not. This was one of the rare weekends where the better game was a Friday game as opposed to a Saturday game.
I'm going to stop you right there.
Okay.
Unless you saw the start of Saturday night, which I thought the first period of Saturday night was the best period they played all year. They were ready to play. They came out strong. They didn't make any mistakes. They got a lead, and then it all just went up in the air.
Yeah, well, the problem with that is the game is 3 periods long or longer, and not just 1 period long. If you throw in the other 2 periods, the first period might have been their best period, but you can't forget about the other 2 plus. So
exactly.
Friday night, I thought there's no way to tell necessarily how they came out because AIC scored so quickly. What I think that really did is, at least through the screen, I got the feeling that made ASU very angry, and I think they stepped up their game.
Absolutely.
I think I'm not going to sit here and say they weren't ready to play, because, listen, you could score a goal in the first shot. It might be the only goal you get all game. Oh, look, and that's what happened. That doesn't mean that they weren't ready to play. Sometimes you have to tip your cap to the guy shooting the puck, too. But I thought that goal angered them on top of the intensity that they came out with. And they channeled that anger and channeled that intensity and played a very good game on a Friday, which is, we know, has been kind of their, I don't want to say soft spot, but usually not the better of their 2 games on a weekend.
Absolutely. So let me throw out a couple of things to you.
And, I'm sorry,
go ahead.
We've been talking about it all year, and we've mentioned it just about every weekend, but they got almost exclusively secondary scoring on Friday night. They got the first goal from Johnny Walker, and for the most part, they got secondary scoring from the other lines. And when they do that, they are very, very hard to beat. And as long as we're talking about the secondary players, and I don't mean it in that way that they are at a lesser level. I meant to mention this in the last segment we did 2 weeks ago. I think the guy that's flying so far under the radar, and it was mentioned in one of the USCHO podcasts, Josh Maniscalco is not getting enough credit for the game that he's played from the day one to this point in the season. And I was angry at myself for not mentioning that 2 weeks ago, because he's been unbelievable.
He's had a great season so far. A couple things I want to jump in with. When you talk about secondary scoring, I asked Coach Powers this too at the post game one of the nights. His freshmen aren't freshmen anymore. They've matured beyond the freshman stage.
Okay.
Here's a couple of things behind the scenes that I don't know if anybody mentioned, but Demetrius Coleman-Zeese is a Calgary draft pick, right?
Right.
Guess who was in the building this weekend? Don Maloney. Don Maloney was at Oceanside Ice Arena.
Right.
And guess who had the best weekend of his college career?
I'm guessing he wears 23, right? Yeah.
Exactly. He was phenomenal. He was all over the ice. He was doing everything that was asked of him. When he came in at the press conference, he was the normal Demetrius. I don't want to take much credit. I'm still a freshman. But his game changed. He was lightning on ice. He was all over the place.
He also shot the puck. Shot the puck. And if you've been paying attention to what we've been saying all year, he needs to shoot, especially on the power play, because he needs to be that threat because if you watch and if you're paying close attention, when that first power play unit is on the ice, they're basically leaving him alone and shifting everybody towards Johnny Walker, because Coleman-Zeese has shown that he's not going to shoot. All of a sudden this weekend, he shoots the puck, and look what happens.
Yeah. So anyway, he's one. Josh Maniscalco is the other. And the final one that I want to mention is PJ Morocco, who has been fantastic all season long. And you talk about not getting enough credit. PJ does the dirty work. I mean, he's the I call him the mini Dom Garcia, because he's in the Dom Garcia role on the freshman group, but he also has a lot of talent to score the puck. I think Dominic this season has just come in with an attitude that he's going to be the grinder, and that's his role. And I don't think, like I mentioned to him when I had him on last week, I said, maybe this is going to be good for 2 goals for you. And he goes, I don't know about that. He goes, I'm a grinder. And I said, yeah, I know. But see, I think the attitude for Dominic is this role. This is my role, right? And I think if you remember, his dad, Fred, told you and I that he was talking about wanting Dom to score some more. And he said, Dom told him, no, Dad, I'm a grinder. But here's the difference. PJ Morocco is also a grinder who scores when he gets his opportunity. And I wish we could get Dominic to that point where he would score when he had the opportunity.
Well, here's how I'll respond to that. First of all, Morocco's on a different line. He's playing with Coleman-Zeese. He's playing with Tyler Bush or Brent Gruber. Garcia is playing on that fourth line with Steen Pashnik and whoever they put in that spot. And what you have is a line that's supposed to be that grinding line and that physical line and that forecheck line. Next year, Dom might not be on that line. He might move up to the second line based on the graduation, and coach might tell him, listen, you have to shoot more, you have to score more this year because this is now your role. So it'll be an interesting transition, but we are obviously getting way ahead of ourselves. But that's the way I look at that now.
And we're getting ahead of ourselves because we have to hang that national championship banner first.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, from your mouth, right?
Buffalo Bound is my new hashtag.
Well, listen, let's hope, because right now every projection has them, if they get in, going to Fargo, and that's a little bit of a long drive for me. So
they're not going to Fargo. Let's end this right here. Every projection wants to put them in Fargo because they're in the West.
But I get that.
People that make the decision are going to put them in Providence or Manchester, not Allentown, not Fargo, because they want to sell tickets. And they know there's probably 200 to 300 tickets that can be sold in Manchester and Providence that can't be sold in Fargo or maybe not even in Allentown. So let's put this down right now.
Let's go back. Friday night, they played very well. They got the they got a power play goal too, and And I never really felt that the outcome of that game was in doubt on Friday night.
Not me either.
So, especially not once they took the 2-1 lead.
Yep, I agree.
So, Saturday night, like you said, they came out barnstorming. They came out like a house of fire, and we're all over them. We're all over AIC, who came into this weekend playing pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely. Coach
David
Ballard gave them a lot of credit, too. He said they were a very good hockey team that's underrated.
They've been in that conference. They've been playing well. Bentley's been playing well. It's still only going to be a one-bid league, but that bid is going to be a dogfight. Just kind of like ASU, if they had gotten one of those games against Ohio State or picked out one of those games against somebody else, they might be sixth in the pairwise. AIC probably has one or two of those games on their schedule too. If they had won one of those games, So anyway, Saturday night they come out in the first period. They dominate the first period. They build up the 4-1 lead, and then
it happened. Okay, let me stop you right there. Before the start of the second period, or during the start of the second period, and I was sitting, as you know, right above the bench, right?
Right.
This is what I saw happen. A guy by the name of Christensen, pretty good hockey player from AIC,
their best player,
was extremely irritated when he came on the ice in the second period. And he was running people like he was a bull in a china shop, right? Okay. He went after Johnny Walker. He went after Demetrius. He took Johnny Walker into the boards right in front of the bench. And Johnny got up from the scrum and came back to the bench and was making the fist pumping sign like he punched me in the face. And that bench was so fired up. They were so fired up that that's what took them out of their game. That they now had a target, which was number 18 in black, that they wanted to go get. And every player on that bench was fuming over what they did to Johnny on that play. And the first person on the ice was Steen, and you saw what Steen did. He ran over 3 or 4 people before he got the game ejection for the checking from behind, which was not a checking from behind, first of all, and second of all, did not warrant a 5-minute major in a game ejection. But the thing of it is, the guys lost their composure for the second and part of the third period. And they have to learn that, if somebody gets under your skin, you pay them back by putting the puck in the net. You don't pay them back by running at them. Not now. Not now this time of the year.
First of all, not this time of the year. Second of all, you were barely midway through the second period. Game is not over.
Right.
I don't want to advocate headhunting anybody, but you and I have been watching hockey for a long time, and we know it happens, but you're not doing it in the middle of the second period. You do it with 30 seconds left, or you do it with a minute left and a 3 or a 4 goal lead. This is the middle of the second period. Way too many things can happen, and they did. And I'm going to say it right now. There have been weekends this year where you scratch your head about the officiating, and I'm not going to sit here and say that some of these calls made you scratch your head, but all I will say is I've never seen a team get called for 5 consecutive penalties.
And I'll tell you why that was.
It doesn't happen. It just because referees are human, and a lot of times they're sitting there and saying, well, I just made 2 or 3 calls against this team in a row. I either have to put my whistle away or call the next one on the other team because it's just human nature. But they called 5 in a row. And then the 6th penalty that they called, the coincidental minors, that was a great gymnastics job by Dylan Holman, reaching behind him like this, grabbing the guy and roughing him with the guy landing on top of him. That was brilliant. That's an Olympic gold medal move right there.
Right. What? Yeah, it was awful. And Powers was laying into the officiating crew, but I think like I'll go back to my original point, which was that they lost their composure.
Absolutely.
And when you lose your composure and the officials know you've lost your composure, they keep tacking on. They don't help the situation. So it was like if it was a ticky-tack play, they still called it because they knew that they'd lost their composure. So in my estimation, if this team's going to have a chance at winning the national championship, they must learn to control their emotions and focus. And now let me go to the other side of the coin. Excuse me.
Okay, by the way, not for nothing, but we have said it all year long. They have to stay out of the penalty box. And they didn't do it on Saturday night, regardless of what we thought of the calls. They didn't. And they spent almost 13 consecutive minutes killing penalties.
Shorthand. Yep.
And
that wears you down.
It wore you down, and you saw how the 30 seconds in that 13 minutes where they weren't shorthanded, they had the puck in the AIC zone.
Yes.
That 30 seconds that they were not shorthanded. And you could see by the end of the game, those guys were gassed.
Yep.
All of them.
Yep.
And they were running around. They were chasing the puck. And they were not staying where they're supposed to stay. They weren't playing their lanes and playing their position. And that's why AAC got back into the game.
Yeah. Now, let me tell you the plus part of that, though.
Okay.
What I saw from my little perch right above the bench and what I witnessed in sound was every time AIC scored, everybody, Tyler Bush, Jacob Wilson, Brinson, a lot of the leaders on the team were telling everybody, calm down, we got this. Calm down, we're a better team. Calm down, we got this. When the game got tied and it was headed to overtime, right before the overtime face-off, Jacob Wilson stood up on the bench. It was very quiet on the bench at the time, and I heard him clear as a bell. He said, all this means is we get the next one. That's all he said. And that team fired up like somebody lit a dynamite blast underneath them. There was no doubt in my mind after I heard that they were going to win that game in overtime. Well, you could just see it and feel it.
Well, once again, when it was 5-on-5, they were clearly the better team.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
They were clearly the better team. A great play to get the puck in the defensive zone and start the breakout in the 2-on-1. And, once again, Kumanzi showed his speed on that play. Yeah. And that was the proper time to pass the puck because Morocco was pretty open. He was ahead. And if the shot wasn't taken at that point and he got the goalie moving, which allowed them to go 5-hole with the goal, and that was the right play. So, and I'm going to really, really date myself here. Okay?
I don't even know if I can go back that far, but go ahead.
Well, I'm going to show my roots, so to speak. And I tried to find the video, and I'm so bad at Googling things, but all I could think of when I saw that dog pile after the goal is that there was an old-time World Series game between the Brooklyn Dodgers and the New York Yankees, and Cookie Lavagetto hits a double to win the game off Bill Bevins in the ninth inning when Bevins was pitching a no-hitter, and the Dodgers win the game, and Red Barber, who's calling the game, is describing the dog pile at second base, and he says, folks, they're killing Lavagetto. And that's all I could think about is they were killing Morocco and piling on at the end of the game after he scores. So, but, I'm dating myself.
Let me date myself and put that in a hockey perspective. What I thought of initially was 1979 NCAA National Championship when Neil Broughton, who's a good friend of mine, scored the game-winning goal, literally sliding, and beat North Dakota for the NCAA Championship. And it was the same thing. He went through the net. He ended up at the backboards and was dogpiled. And I saw that thing clearly in my head all over again as Broughton was doing that. And PJ is such a good kid that you couldn't be happier for him to do that.
Great.
The disappointing part, kind of and not kind of, was we all anticipated that all 5 seniors are going to come into the press room that night. But I kind of missed having PJ in there because I wanted to hear what he would say. Because if you remember, a couple of weeks ago, a month ago, when he was in at the post game, he said Johnny Walker tells him to shoot the puck 10 times a game.
Remember that? Yeah.
So I wanted to hear PJ respond. But, how can you complain about those 5 seniors coming in? And
you can't.
Let's talk a little bit about that. Those guys are fantastic ambassadors for not only the hockey team, but for ASU. They all have, everybody except Strides has double degrees. He doesn't have his because he only had 3 years to come to school.
Right.
But he got his degree in 3 years anyway. Okay. So not only are they great students, but they understand their roles in this team and they understand their role of building the program. And all 5 of them that I talked to individually told me the same thing, that they're most proud of the fact that they built a program that's going to be around for a while. They were all, to a man, extremely impressed by that. They all also agreed that their season's far from over, and they think there's more memories to be made, and I believe there are also.
Well, let's hope so. I will say this. I have a ton of respect for Dylan Holman.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay? Whatever the internal political machinations ended up being, he was the captain, and they changed captains in the offseason, and he did not say boo. In addition, not only that, he stepped up his game.
Yeah.
And played even better. And a lot of guys would not have taken that very well. And you have to give him a ton of credit for that.
Well, I don't want to speak for Dylan, but I can tell you what he's told me in the past is that it was a huge relief when the C came off his jersey because he focused on leading the team without having to lead the team, if that makes any sense.
Sure.
He didn't have to have the peripheral stuff that goes along with wearing the C. Okay, that became Brinson's responsibility and Tyler Bush. I also asked Coach Powers about those two. I said, your move to captaincy was brilliant this offseason. He goes, yeah, I was a little worried about it, but he tried it and it worked. And I said, tell me the difference between Brinson and Tyler. And he said, Brinson is the guy that picks you up, and Tyler's the guy that's not afraid to dress you down. So he said, when Tyler tells you something, he'll go right straight up to you and tell you something. And then sometimes you need Brinson to come along and pick you back up again. And he said those two have been just instrumental. I don't know how many times over the past month he's told me and told everybody, the guys are driving the bus. We're just guiding it. And he's absolutely 100% correct. Those guys are taking the reins and going with it.
Well, listen, the results have shown that. So, 21 wins, probably 1 win away from locking up a bid. And I can't even tell you how many times in the last 3 days I've seen this whole, well, they've locked up a bid. No, they haven't.
Right.
And I don't know where this is coming from. And maybe the odds are against them not getting a bid. But you know when they're going to get a bid? When we know for sure they're going to stay in the top 11. And right now, we don't know that.
Right. Exactly. They must get one more win this next weekend against Minnesota. They have to get at least one. And I got a feeling they're going to get 2. I also have a feeling
that's a Jekyll and Hyde team, but we'll get into that next week since there's no game this weekend. I've watched their last 4 games strictly and intentionally because I knew that ASU was going to have those 2 games there. And all I can say is Jekyll and Hyde. And I'll leave it at that until next week.
Yeah, well, mull over this fact. The Sun Devil hockey players, the speedy Sun Devil hockey players, are going to get a chance to go back and play on Olympic ice. Demetrius Kumanzis, who's come into his own now, is going back to Minnesota, where he was a high school star last year, to play at the University of Minnesota, who he rejected an offer from. And he's going to have more motivation than ever. I don't see how you stop this team on Olympic ice when they have 3 or 4 lines coming at you, because you can't key on anybody. The only way they will lose this weekend series in Minnesota is if they continue to beat themselves by not controlling their emotions and by going to the penalty box. 5-on-5, there's not a team in the country they can't beat. Period.
I would say that there's a lot of validity to that. They have shown the ability to play with anybody 5-on-5. And if you're only going to give up 2 or 3 power plays a game, they have the penalty killing that can do that. But you can't kill penalties for 13 straight minutes.
Nope.
I don't care what level you're at.
That's where you got to check your emotions. And if I were Coach Powers, and I'd be telling those boys from now until the end of the season, whenever that is, I will be telling them, if you want to retaliate, if you want to let somebody get under your skin, go put the puck in the net. Don't go take somebody out and put us in a bad situation where we're fighting an uphill battle, like you just said. You can't go taking somebody out even though you'd like to.
Because I'd like to take somebody out right now.
Okay, here's your shot.
I have to control my emotions first.
You got 3.5 minutes to get it out of you.
I got 3.5 minutes to scream, so to speak. And
go for
whoever is in charge of these video streams, whether it's the Pac-12 network, whether it's people at Cronkite, and I am a proud Cronkite alum. Okay, I have more pride in that degree from that school than just about anything other than my kids. But that was a pathetic, embarrassing job that they did last weekend with those 2 hockey streams. Okay, you want to say that, hey, there was a problem on Friday night and they got it straightened out? You didn't make sure that problem didn't happen again on Saturday night, where there was no audio and there was audio and graphics at the baseball game in the first weekend of the season, but there was nothing, and you didn't make sure that the coverage of the biggest hockey game that the school was going to play, the biggest weekend, the program at the end of the season, you're telling me you're prioritizing a game that's the start of a season as opposed to what's basically a playoff game? That's a poor job, and I don't know who's supposed to get the blame, whether it's the Pac-12 network or it's the school for not making sure that everything runs right. I don't know what that agreement is between the schools and the network and everything else, but that was a horrible job to make sure that everything wasn't working exactly right on that video stream, both Friday night and Saturday night. It was embarrassing.
Okay.
And the network should be embarrassed. The network should be embarrassed. The Pac-12 network, and I understand what they're doing. It's great for these kids at all these schools in the conference that they get a chance to do this. But how about you not let them take the embarrassment because you've given them equipment that is either 6 years old and doesn't work, or there's no troubleshooting to make sure that stuff doesn't happen. When it happened in the 80s, the technology was crappy. Okay? This is 2019. While I understand technology and computers and everything else can go on the fritz once, twice, I'm sorry. Once is okay, it happened. We have to make sure it doesn't happen again. And not only did it happen again on Saturday, it happened for 2 periods plus the overtime. So there was no press conference after the game for us to see until somebody posted it online later. And it was an embarrassing job.
All right, you did that all, and you still have 30 seconds to spare to say, until next week.
Am I controlling my emotions, Scott? Are we good?
You've done good. I haven't had to kill one penalty for you yet.
That's good. So hopefully, I hate scoreboard watching. The week before the AIC series was miserable. Sitting there watching the scores and not having a game to distract myself with. Yeah. It's
going to be another weekend like that, buddy.
Oh, God. Oh.
I'm also going to tell you that They're going to get through this. And like I said, for how long now? 5-6 months. 22 wins on the season is the magic number. You got to get to 22 wins, and everything else will solve itself. You just sit back and you go in wherever you go in. The other myth I'm going to put to red right now, I'm going to tell you again, they are not going to Fargo. They're going somewhere in the East when it comes down to it. These knuckleheads that keep bringing that up are just doing nothing more than looking at the geographical location and going like, oh, it's much closer to send ASU to Fargo. That does not matter. What matters is selling tickets. And here's the thing. ASU can right now, they can be anywhere from the number 2 seed in a region to the number 4 seed in a region.
Right.
And after this next weekend of games, they have no control over it. They are where they are, right. and they don't care. They honestly don't care.
I understand it, and I honestly don't care either, because this is something that I never expected at the start of the season, and I get that. And if they end up in Fargo, it's going to be on my TV just like everybody else's. But it probably also depends on who they end up playing. Obviously, if they play a team from the Northeast, they have a better chance of being shifted to the Northeast. If they play, say, Western Michigan or an NCAA or another NCHC team or Minnesota State, they might not.
Yeah, that'd be shifted.
Okay, I hope so. I'm warming up my car now, Scott. I'm hoping. I'm trying to pack up and ready to go. I wish I could go to Minnesota.
All right. We're wrapping everything up by telling folks that our plans next week are to make it to Minnesota and give you some live coverage from Minnesota. I'm not going to tell you how much live coverage because I haven't worked the details out on that yet, but it'll definitely be.
Details get in the way of facts, Scott.
It'll be pregame, postgame, and between periods at the least on Friday and Saturday night if we get there. So let's hope that we can pick up some sponsors here and some people want to back this team all the way to Buffalo. My new hashtag, Paul. Bound for Buffalo, or Buffalo Bound. However you want to do it.
Okay.
Have a good evening.
Number's 1.
I agree. Magic number is 1. All right. Have a good night.
See you next week.